What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? Sunday night, just watched Miami. Mario Cristobal beat Notre Dame. Massive win. Kid kicks a long field goal, and the defense, I repeat, the defense for the Hurricanes comes through in a big, big way. A couple quick takeaways from that game. Yesterday, I did a reaction video to the Arch Manning performance and the Ohio State victory for Ryan Day and Matt Patricia. Well, I missed a lot because then Florida State upset Alabama, kicked their butt. Clemson loses at home to LSU. And I just have some big picture stuff that I definitely want to hit on. We got coaches already on the hot seat with $70 million buyouts. We got, could this be Brian Kelly's year? Is the ACC back? So a lot going on. But before we dive into what we just witnessed, I do need to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast, Gametime. That looked pretty fun tonight. Now, granted, it was 90% humidity at kickoff, a little humid for my taste. Michael Irvin is just soaked in sweat. But if you want to go to one of these games, they look really, really fun. Not going to lie. We got a big one coming up this weekend. Oklahoma hosting Michigan. That'll be fun. But any of these games, obviously the NFL is finally here. We got an NFL game on Thursday. We then got an NFL game on Friday. Now, granted, that's in Brazil. Obviously, Sunday, we're off and running. So you want to go to one of these games this fall, doesn't get any easier. Just use my friends at Gametime, best ticketing app in America. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN, J-O-H-N, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. You know what's funny is sometimes during games, this week, the early on in some of these games could be a little slow. So you just get on your phone, you're just Googling different guys. And I just went to the Wikipedia for Mario Cristobal. And in 1998, before his coaching career really started, he had just finished playing. He was a GA currently at Miami. He was thinking about joining the Secret Service. And he went through all the training, all the testing, and he got in. He was going to be a Secret Service agent. And he accepted the job. And he told the team, and he told the players. And then he slept on it, and he declined it, and he went into coaching. And obviously, all these years later, almost 3 decades, he's on an $80 million contract at his alma mater. And there is no disputing this guy is an elite recruiter. He became a star for Nick Saban in the mid-2010s. He did an awesome job at Oregon. And you just watch the talent that he has at Miami. There is no disputing his ability to identify, recruit, and land. Now, obviously, that's changed over the years with NIL, but he can stack a team. Dan Lanning, the cupboard. Listen, I got to be fair, right? I'm not hard, but I just acknowledge the fact that Ryan Day took over a rocket ship. So Dan Lanning. I mean, that team has had a lot of talent when he showed up because Mario Cristobal could recruit. Now, can he win? That's a different question. And last year, a couple years ago with Brian Kelly, it's like he's got Cam Ward, he's got this incredible offense, and the defense is a joke. And there's always something with his teams. One, they melt down a lot, and two, you just watch them from a buttoned-up standpoint. They just don't feel that well coached relative to the highest level of teams. And tonight was big because if you would have told me before this game, I didn't bet on this game because I thought it was a coin flip. It's in Florida. Anytime you get these teams that aren't from the South going to the South, it was a Boise State thing when they went to South Florida. You're just getting, there's 91% humidity. It was hot as hell. So that's just going to be advantage Miami. Now, toward the end of the game, it looked like they were melting down again. And Notre Dame scores, then he scores again, and then it's a tie game. You're like, what's going on here? He's going to blow this game. It looked like not only was he in full control, it looked like he was going to win it going away. And it was just going to be another meltdown on the guy's resume. But at the end of the day, no one will remember because the guy kicks a field goal, his defense comes through, and Miami looks really good. And another star that kind of came out of this game, I don't know that much about him, but the offensive coordinator, Shannon Dawson, last year he proved Cam Ward was viewed as like a 5th or 4th or 6th round pick, right? It's the reason at best, maybe like high 4th-round pick. It would have been pretty shocking after Washington State if he would have got drafted on the second day. Turned him into the number 1 overall pick. And the reason guys like me kind of like the Titans this year is because of him. Well, Shannon Dawson, he was the offensive coordinator last year. Listen, if you watch Cam Ward at Washington State, there was no disputing his physical attributes. He was really talented. When he first got there, you're like, this guy's from what school? Damn, who is this guy? I did not think that about Carson Beck. It's like, still not the biggest Carson Beck fan, but he looked way better tonight with Dawson calling the plays. Listen, if their offense is good again, which most teams aren't going to be as good as Notre Dame on defense throughout their, this year on their schedule, I don't see how this guy doesn't either become a head coach in 26 or NFL teams don't start offering this guy an offensive coordinator job. So the one thing you say about, Mario Cristobal, clearly he can recruit and build this roster. His offensive coordinator is really good, back-to-back years. They're going to be potent on offense. That little guy, number 10, Tony, holy shit. Keep an eye on that cat for the next couple years. And the question marks defensively. Well, their defensive line's flying around. Their DBs made plays. Was really impressive. That was a big-time win for Mario. Honestly, I'm pretty impressed with Notre Dame. And the one thing with Marcus Freeman, there were times tonight where I just thought, you guys are kind of getting worked. You look like crap. And sometimes college coaches can be pretty emotional in basketball and football. They're always screaming. They're just always going nuts. In the NFL, assistants go nuts sometimes, but the head coach, he has to stay pretty even keel because the team's kind of looking at him. And the good coaches in college, now Saban was kind of an outlier, but you kind of got to contain yourself because if you get frazzled, if you're going nuts, your team's going to really fall apart. And Marcus Freeman kind of had a Belichickian thing tonight. And I was like, damn, this guy, because I was down on him his first year when he took over for Brian Kelly. Remember they had lost to Marshall. They should have lost to Cal. They just looked really, really bad. And what he's done, obviously last year, even this year, they're really the David Shaw, Jim Harbaugh Stanford team. They're never going to have elite wide receivers. Can't get them into school. But in terms of top flight defense, their defense is going to be really good. Miami's probably top 6 or 7 roster in the league or in the country. But they're going to struggle to be a potent passing team. If you notice as the night went on, they can't really push the ball down the field beside to the tight end. So the way this team's going to have to operate is offensive line, run the ball with 2-star backs, and get the ball to your tight end and manipulate passes to your wide receiver. But when you get down in that situation, it can be difficult. And I just thought he did a pretty good job of their team's pretty mentally tough. This is not some fraudulent, last year being an outlier season. I know they lost tonight, but to go down there in the humidity, to be playing like crap with a first-year quarterback who, listen, any time that these guys make their first career start, I think people are going to be pretty critical at these big-time programs. But, we got to let it breathe a little bit. We got to give the guy some time. And that's a really, really tough opponent. But, they're always going to struggle outside. David Shaw and Jim Harbaugh did forever, and they were consistently in the top 5. They were consistently competing to win the Rose Bowl, to be in the BCS, to be a top 3 or 4 team in the country. And they just never had Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase. CeeDee Lamb's not going to school at Notre Dame. So you got to be buttoned up on defense, which they're going to be under Marcus Freeman. But tonight, you saw, especially toward the end of the game, that last drive, it looked like their tackles were gassed. That right tackle got embarrassed. He got, it was bad. Now, was he just, sucking wind? As Jimmy Johnson famously said to the Miami Hurricanes way back in the day, fatigue makes cowards of us all. And his big thing was always be in the best shape because the moment you get tired, you could be David Goggins, you could be Chuck Liddell, or you could be me or you. You're just not as tough, and you're definitely not as mentally tough. And you just saw that right tackle. It looked like he was gassed. And this is what Stanford hung their hat on. Their offensive lines were elite. So if Notre Dame's going to want to compete and get back to the national championship and just have a team that can win playoff games, because we know, I guess this year the seeding has changed a little bit, they got to button up that offensive line. But they're going to have to win with their running backs and tight ends because, as we saw last year, wide receiver is going to be a little issue. You want to rep your team's logo and not rock a jersey? Swim trunks, gym-ready mesh shorts, polos? Well, I got you covered. Chubbies. They have a great NFL collection, every team. So for a limited time, use our exclusive code 3andOut for $10 off at chubbysshorts.com/3andOut. Yes, that includes the NFL collection. Let the thighs out and the good times roll. Chubby is the ultimate football apparel brand, so much so they created their own fantasy football league. George Kittle, Ian Rappaport, and others have come together to assemble the Chubbies League on NFL Fantasy. Each week, the top 5 scorers will win a chance at a Chubbies polo shorts combo with their team's logo. And the champion gets the chance at the ultimate fan experience, 5-city, 5-stadium NFL tour with a +1. While the fantasy flop faced a hilarious and unforgettable punishment only Chubbies could pull off. Head to chubbysshorts.com/Chubbies League to learn more and have some fun. Get ready for the most outrageous fantasy football season of your life. And would you look at this, folks? For a limited time, our friends at Chubbies are giving our listeners $10 with the promo code #3andOut at chubbysshorts.com/3andOut. That's $10 off your first order with the promo code 3andOut that includes the NFL collection. Support our show and tell them we sent you. I did want to bring in my guy, Jackson, who I know is biggest Notre Dame fan I know, probably beside Lou Holtz. Listen, last year you play Texas A&M, you get a big win. Now, granted, you were playing a quarterback who barely could walk straight and chew gum, but this year, down big, but come storming back. It's weird, in college now with the playoff. You're not out of it just because you lose a game. And I would say that for Clemson, obviously Texas. This isn't 2014. This isn't 2008. You don't have to run the table. Like you can, especially with your guys' schedule this year, unlike last year, you can afford to lose a couple games. But where do you stand, Jackson? What do you think of the quarterback? I know you were hard on the offensive coordinator throwing those quick screens, but you don't exactly have Randy Moss out there.
Yeah, the quick screens, and then, we kept texting our group chat. It was like, when is, Jeremiah Love going to get involved? He only had 10 carries, and CJ Carr actually had more carries than he did, which was kind of surprising. And, 24, Jarion Price comes in. He's kind of that in between the tackles, downhill runner just to get some kind of momentum. But I thought CJ Carr played well. I mean, with all the new quarterbacks that we saw this weekend, Ty Simpson, Julian Sayin, Arch Manning, like one thing that, too, like the young quarterbacks is the confidence behind their arm. And you saw him rolling back, and it almost got me flashbacks of Shedeur Sanders in preseason. You're like, oh my gosh, he's on the 30-yard line, makes that throw, the momentum switch over to Notre Dame. Couple fluke plays. I mean, the fumbles and then the interception off of that guy's foot is something that's just going to roll their way. But you talked about it. I mean, Notre Dame's a tough team under Marcus Freeman. If this was Brian Kelly pre what he's got now and them beating Clemson with all these transfers and, a veteran quarterback, they probably don't win that game. And we were even texting in the group chat too. Like, these are the games that Mario Cristobal loses. And maybe it's this year with Dawson and the defensive coordinator they got from Minnesota, where he kind of just takes a step back and lets them coach. And like you said, they went out and recruited. Tony's a stud. Up front, I didn't expect Miami to out physical Notre Dame on both sides of the football up front. And you're talking about the heat being a factor. But yeah, I mean, I think Notre Dame fought. Like you said, it's not a 1-game season for Notre Dame. You got a bye week and then you play A&M. It's not the worst thing ever. We see Notre Dame after losing to NIU bounce back and end up making the national championship. It is going to be interesting how it plays out. And if this game could have been 28-7, it could have been over.
Yeah, it could have been. Notre Dame. It felt like it was teetering there for a minute.
Yeah,
like it was like
the running back slips
30-10.
Yeah, running back slips. But I mean, I'm curious your thoughts about CJ Carr. I think he played good. It's just the last drive. You see the freshman in him. You can't take a sack, and like you said, the tackles. I mean, they were gassing. Bain, the Reuben Bain, Miami's defender, to their best defensive line, showed up last. But overall, I was shocked that Notre Dame threw the ball 30 times. But maybe this is something that will benefit them in the long run.
Well, when you're down, 21-7, especially in the fourth quarter, you got to score. So if we look how many times they passed the ball in those last couple drives, it probably inflated it to what it would have been if the score was 14-14, right? So they had to get away from the run, but they were throwing the ball then to the running back, countless times. This is my comparison, though, to the Stanford teams. Sometimes it's hard to judge the quarterback. Let's use Carson Beck as an example, who I was probably too hard on, as was everyone last year. Disastrous season, but the offensive line was bad, and they had lost Bowers and they had lost Latin McConkey. So unless you're Mahomes or Josh Allen, if I remove those two guys, you're going to look worse, right? Dramatically worse. And he looked really bad. Well, then tonight, one thing Miami's always been able to do is like they get skill guys, right? And Mario's good at that. So you bring in this true freshman Tony that obviously is going to probably be a freshman All-American. I would put money on that if he's healthy. I mean, you just saw they never took that guy off the field. Like he's just part of their group, and they're playing. Listen, I think it's stupid that you can play a nobody. Like Penn State's really good, right? Some of these teams are really good. Georgia, when you play the Sisters of the Poor, I don't know how to judge you with your current team. I know you're good, but like I know way more about Texas in a loss or Clemson in a loss. Like this was a real game, like a real game. And so when you treat usually these Mario is like, I wonder if he learned a lot from Saban. Like sometimes when you got a blue chipper and he's ready, you just got to play him. And they were just riding that kid. But my point is Carson looked a lot better, and he just pushed the ball down the field more. Like you guys just are only going to push the ball down the field if the tight end's wide open, and that was a little like Penn State last year. Now Penn State, because of academic, like they can get guys in, and we'll see what their unit looks like. The better teams they play, but like you're just not going to have NFL star receivers outside like Miami, like Texas and Ohio State, and some of these teams are going to get, and that's going to be your downfall because there are going to be times. Who knows? Maybe Miami's like a Final Four team this year. I think that's possible. That if you do get down 14-0 or in the second half, like these games, this isn't Texas Tech versus Washington State that every game's going to be 50-40. It kind of was nice, and I enjoyed it a lot this last 48 hours of just seeing physical ass football. And it was hard. Like these DBs are making plays, the D line's all hitting, and you do need your wide receivers though, like to run I don't know, like a 10-yard out or something. And I just don't have that much faith in Notre Dame at that position. And that could be like if they were more explosive, if I just gave them a top 10 type college wide receiver, the team would feel a lot more balanced. So the moment the defense isn't dominating, they do feel like they're up against the ropes a little bit. Because you thought tonight, and again, it could have just been, probably was, the heat was insane. But if their defense isn't dominating the game, last year against Ohio State, right? If you're losing a little bit, it's like, how are they going to come back? And that's how Love, who clearly is an elite player. Same is it Price, number 24?
Yeah, Jadarian Price. Yeah.
Like you're not just gonna, unless you're Kyle Shanahan, just keep calling runs down 21-7, right? You're gonna have to throw the ball a little bit, and then they can kind of tee off. So that's just not how I would imagine Marcus is talking as we record this. But he's like, we can't get down double digits. Like that's not how we're built. And it's just true. Like LSU the last couple of years, Miami last year, like they could get down 15 points. Remember Cal? They were down like 30-10. It's like whatever. We'll just start slinging it around. But that's gonna be Notre Dame's ultimate downfall. I don't really know how they change that unless it's like, you know what, we're gonna make a couple exceptions. And it's gonna be specifically toward wide receivers.
I do think they showed some flashes of potentially throwing the football. I mean, they had that Middlekauff Fields, number 0, had that crazy catch. He's the Virginia 6'5" wide receiver they got. Obviously, the tight end had that 65-yarder, but besides that, they didn't really have any explosive plays. And even Jaden Greathouse tonight, the guy that went off in the national championship when they were down against Ohio State, that kind of got him back into that game. He was quiet tonight. So I get what you mean in terms of like, I didn't expect CJ Carr to run the ball 11 times. This is the guy that's supposed to be a pocket passer, pass first quarterback. But you did see some flashes in what they did in the offseason where I'm kind of like, okay, let's hold off a little bit on them being maybe a run-first team. I know you have Jeremiah Love and Price, but I did think you did see some flashes for a true fresh or a redshirt freshman, I should say, with the wide receiver they have on the outside that they could be two-dimensional. And if they are, then they could be a problem. But it all starts with the offensive line that got beat up, and they couldn't run the ball early, which kind of got them in that hole to begin with.
Could also make the argument, kind of a freak. I mean, they ran the play over and over, the quick screen that turned into a turnover that then turned into a touchdown. But also the CJ Daniels, the one-handed catch. If he doesn't make, I don't know, like a, Odell Beckham, Justin Jefferson like grab, that's intercepted.
I don't think a Georgia receiver catches that.
And he probably lands on his feet. And he's going, I don't know if he scored a touchdown, but he was going to land on his feet with the ball in his breadbasket, and the guy just made an incredible catch. So Georgia did hit a couple. I mean, Carson had some YOLO throws today that landed. Now, he is playing like they got a lot more talent on that team, right, outside. I actually think it's not – I have no problem when you lose a close game to a team that's clearly good. And that's the great part about this playoff, right? Is that it's a little more NFL. This notion, oh, the games aren't going to matter as much. Bullshit. Yeah, like when Alabama plays Mercer, no one's going to care. They didn't care when Nick Saban was there. But I bet Notre Dame's devastated in the locker room right now. Clemson was devastated in the locker room right now. Texas is devastated in the locker room right now. They all could easily make the playoffs, and it's football. Just like if the Cowboys get their ass kicked in a couple nights, it's going to suck for them. Like in football, you only play so many games. So I actually think it's that notion of that. Like this game felt really big. All of these games, right? All the 4 straight big games. Sorry, Shane, I'm not counting Syracuse, Tennessee. Even though that, in theory, decent game. That's a better game than most. But the morning game, Ohio State, Texas, Florida State, Alabama. Now assuming that Florida State's back, which I think they easily could be. And then the night game, LSU-Clemson. And then this game, you could even say a little bit South Carolina,
Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. Now, quick rant, the neutral site games. If Josh Pate ever becomes the commissioner, we got to ban those. Listen, bowl games, I totally understand the conference championship games, but what made tonight so badass is it felt like, oh, Miami's like kind of has a home field thing going. Obviously Clemson, obviously Ohio State. Like that's what college football is. The NFL is not as much about that. The NFL is more about the crowd beside 3 or 4 places. But in college football, like Iowa, let alone just you go all the Power Fours. Like playing at home is a really big deal. Winning on the road in college is insanely hard, right? I don't even know what Nussmeier's stats are. I don't care. I watched him. He was awesome. Do you know how hard it is to win there, right? It's just like it was. Listen, Alabama might turn out to be 8-4, right? But like that's a hard place to go when they start doing the tomahawk chop, and that fucking place is rocking. These neutral site playing at the Mercedes-Benz, that sucks for the fans. I thought this day before I left Hawaii when Nebraska's playing Cincinnati at Arrowhead. I mean, it's cool that Mahomes and Kelsey get to go, but that sucks for Nebraska or Cincinnati that loses a home game. I mean, that's what college football is for the 12 games. The home and away games really, really matter. And just if that game would have been at Notre Dame, it would have been a huge advantage for Notre Dame. That's one thing you got to factor in college. But yeah, I wouldn't be that down if I were you. I'd still be pretty bullish on the squad.
The last thing I'll say, the perspective on the ACC after this weekend, if Clemson goes down and beats LSU, it's probably even a bigger perspective on the conference. But you looked at Florida State different. You look at Miami different. Miami has to go to Florida State in about 3 or 4 weeks. Florida State has to play Clemson and Miami. That conference looks a little interesting. Now you start to look back and you say, okay, if they could potentially get 2 bids, or what happens with the Big 12? Like if you're the ACC commissioner, you got to be smiling ear to ear on what you saw from both those squads because, like myself, you didn't know what Mario Cristobal was going to produce out there, and then Florida State, everybody counted out. That conference just got interesting. Like Clemson, I picked them to win the national championship. I think a lot of people picked them to win the ACC. If they can't run the football and they can't get things around, like I mean, Miami, Florida State definitely looked a lot more impressive than Clemson did this weekend. If you just base it on the games itself,
I would say, remember last year, Clemson got curb stomped by Georgia,
yeah,
and then by the end of the year, they were really good. So I think they'll still be okay. I actually think their loss, you feel better than Texas because I thought Klubnik wasn't that bad, Where Texas, there's still a lot of question marks with Arch, but. How about Cal? They got like Tua 2.0 meets Michael Penix, who looks really good. We'll see Belichick, but listen, I'm not saying they're a 10-win team, but they got Bill freaking Belichick coaching them. They're not going to suck. They're going to be tough on a weekly basis. I do think it's insane. They play Monday night. They have to play next Saturday. How's that? You can't give them like a bye? I mean, that's crazy. Bill O'Brien at Boston College. The ACC is definitely going to be solid. I think the Big 12 to me clearly looks like the 4th conference, like a clear drop off. Though we'll see Utah. Utah's definitely a team that if you told me Utah went 11-1, wins the Big 12, and then like wins a playoff game, whether it's on the road or at home, very believable. I mean, a couple years ago he was dominating the Pac-12 when the Pac-12 was good, right? With Mario, with DeBoer, with Dan Lanning. He beat both those guys. Like he's a big time coach if he's got a quarterback. I didn't know this, but I was listening to some stuff today that they had stolen the New Mexico quarterback and their OC. I love it when teams do this now. They're like package deal. Give me the play caller and the quarterback. And the play caller's like, it's like the dude from Washington State. Of course, you want the quarterback, but the play caller's like, wait, I get to go to the sweet school too for double my money? Like, I'm in.
It's so funny. And that team too, a lot of people recognize when you're watching that UCLA game, and I know people on the East Coast, it kind of felt like Pac-12 after dark because you got Utah, UCLA, you got Oregon State, Cal. Utah had 3 players playing 2 ways and 2 guys that scored. They had their best corner and their best linebacker.
I didn't see a snap of that game. I just knew. I just followed on my phone. I kind of had to
look out for Utah. I mean, Dampier. 230 yards, 300 total yards. They ran the ball down UCLA's throat. Nico Imaliava, like, he probably regrets going to UCLA. And I think Joey Aguilar, for him, I mean, if Nico doesn't go to UCLA, there's no chance he goes to Tennessee. And now you look at Tennessee a little different. And I know Syracuse defense isn't that great, but I don't know. There's a lot of teams last night, and like you said, it's tough to judge the Penn States, the Georgias, and the Oregons who have to play Montana State. But some of these other teams who got to play, other Big Ten schools, you get a different perspective on those kind of teams and see what they can do later on in the season.
Okay, I'll get you out of here on this. What were you thinking before the season? What are you thinking right now? Because this is a big game, right? You win this game, worst case, you're 10-2. You lose this game, now it's more pressure on these kind of swing games. You kind of got to win. You're playing A&M still, right?
Yeah, must win. Yeah, I think A&M is going to be a must win. You wonder what the involvement is going to be with Love in that next game. I think Denbrock probably regrets not implementing him more in the first half and maybe calling a couple more screenplays. But
who do they play this week?
Bye week. Yeah.
Okay.
They got that second week bye, which is nice for Notre Dame. I mean, after a loss like this, I think when they played NIU, they had a bye week after that too. So, like you said, Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman, I have no heartburn on them. It does think that Boise State lost to USF because you look down the schedule, like the more ranked games, the better for Notre Dame because, yeah, it's not a one-game season, but you do have to have some ranked wins on your schedule, like an A&M win, which they play Texas, and they got some of those.
The difference, though, is then they've changed when they talked about the schedule. If you just watch, Notre Dame's a real team. To me, if Notre Dame's 10-2, and there's some fraudulent Power 4 team that played nobody. Like, I'm sorry, we saw that song and dance last year. We're giving, like, Notre Dame, Texas, this Clemson. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, we just saw they're real teams. So, like, if it's the difference of, like, one of them's 9-3 and the other team's 10-2, but they played nobody, that's where I think I'm more confident that, like, we picked the right team. They still got to play well. They can't lose a bunch of games, but this is not a bad thing, I guess is my overall take. But you got to go 10-2. 9-3 Notre Dame's probably not in, right? You get one more loss.
Yeah, and you wonder what the SEC looks like too. I mean, the SEC does a 3-loss team get in over a 2-loss Notre Dame, and then you kind of got to compare the Big 12 and the ACC. That's where it's going to be interesting moving forward how they do. I know the SEC has a whole agreement where they've got to go play another Power 4 conference team in their schedule. That's the thing, and they have this whole new metric of strength of record. But we'll see. Tough loss for Notre Dame, but they fought back.
Okay, thanks, Jackson. Speaking of the SEC, let's just start with Alabama because I've been a big proponent of Kalen DeBoer. Obviously, he was a Fresno State guy and had success, and then went to Washington and dominated. I mean, this guy was beating everybody and beat Sark and was in the national championship game. Did a fantastic job. Became the type candidate that you not only seriously consider when a guy like Nick Saban retires, you hire. It was a real hire. I know a lot of people are like retweeting Coward's tweet about it being one of the best transitions in college football history. Wasn't a crazy thought. At the time, DeBoer's record was like, I forget off the top of my head, but it was like 111. I mean, he dominated it everywhere he coached. I do believe this. I've always had a theory, and I stand by this, and I think there are only a couple outliers in the history of college football. Where in the NFL, it doesn't matter. Where you are from, where you were born, and where your career kind of takes off, usually is where you're going to have success as a head coach. There are outliers, like a guy from the Midwest can go to the South, like Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer could have coached in China, in Spain, in Alaska, in Florida. It wouldn't have mattered. He would have won. Same thing with Nick Saban. But I saw it out here on the West Coast. Chris Peterson, who had a ton of success at Boise State and then Washington. Grew up in Southern California. Went to UC Davis. Coached at UC Davis. Coached at Oregon. Coached at Boise. Coached at Washington. Thrived on the West Coast. Pete Carroll is a great example. While in the NFL, he could coach any team. Tampa Bay, New England, Seattle, it wouldn't. In college, it does. I don't think Pete Carroll would have worked at Florida. I don't think he would have worked at Alabama. But he thrived at USC. Just like I don't think a lot of non-Southerners work in the South. When I was at Fresno State, Jim McElwain had just left. And his close friend, Doug Nussmeier, my first year at Fresno State, was our offensive coordinator. And Garrett, I remember him having Garrett must have been like 2 or 3 years old, 5 years old at max. He was really, really young. But those guys are West Coast guys. And Jim McElwain coached at Colorado State, had a bunch of success, and then went to Florida, and it was a disaster. Why? Because he's not one of theirs. Like, I kind of like your name to be Kirby or Dabo and have a Southern draw in the South. It matters. Just like in the Midwest, Jim Harbaugh played at Michigan. It really helped when he took over the program. And I just think this Kalen DeBoer thing, is he as bad as it's going right now? I don't think he is. I don't know what's going on. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. But Nick Saban was a hard ass. Like an old school throwback asshole when it came to being a coach. And everyone in the program, players, staff, administration, kind of ate that shit up. They liked him to tell them what to do. When he said jump, they said how high, and then they wouldn't stop leaping till he said stop. And it worked. And everyone profited. The players, the administration, the school, the SEC as a whole. Do you know how many people I know from Northern California that now send their kids to Ole Miss, to Tennessee, to Florida, that go to school in the South? That was unheard of when I was in high school. I remember being kind of nervous, like, should I even entertain going to Oregon or Arizona? I can count more than probably almost both hands the amount of family friends I know that either their kids or their kids' girlfriends or whatever went to school in the SEC. That a big part of that was how popular the SEC came with their football programs. I believe that to my core. And like Nick Saban obviously was the flag bearer for that movement. And Kalen DeBoer is kind of an intellectual. He's not a screamer. A couple years ago when Fresno State was playing ASU, I went to the tailgate, and me and Maria ended up going to the game and hanging out with a bunch of Fresno State guys, former players. And I was talking with one of the former players on the team that had played for DeBoer and was an offensive player and really liked him. And I said, what was he like? Because he had played for both him and Jeff Tedford. He's like, Tedford's a lot different. And Tedford's a West Coast guy as well. Played at Fresno State, from Los Angeles, coached at Oregon, coached at Cal. Like, that's where his region is. But Tedford's kind of an old school asshole, kind of a throwback. DeBoer's like a cerebral, not a yeller, not a screamer, like Chris Peterson. So when he took over the University of Washington, that administration was used to like an intellectual. I'm not saying that Saban is not, but in terms of that's the way he interacts. Google Nick Saban or YouTube him at practice. He screams at everybody. I know people that have worked for him. You go into those staff meetings, your head was on a swivel and you were dialed in because shrapnel could come from any angle. That's not who this guy is. And I wonder if these players or whatever, they're not reacting because it's not really working. I mean, they got their ass kicked yesterday. Now, when I see the stat that Alabama hadn't lost to, I think it's like he's already lost to 4 unranked opponents. Nick Saban lost to 4 unranked opponents in like 17 years. Week 1 in the transfer portal era, like Florida State could be the 7th best team in the country, or they could be 2-10. We have no clue. Beside 3 or 4 teams, like we know Penn State, we know Ohio State, we know Texas, we know Georgia. But Utah could be the 7th best team in the country, or they could be like the 50th. We don't know. Times have changed. Here's what I know about Florida State, and Mike Norvell specifically. That 2 years ago, on this weekend, he played Brian Kelly, pretty sure on Sunday night. Beat the living piss out of him. Brian Kelly's team was led by Jaden Daniels, Malika Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. And Mike Norvell curb stomped them. Oh, yeah, he happened to have about 7 or 8 guys that were drafted in the top 100. Jared Verse, many consider one of the best young defensive linemen. Oh, yeah, his teammate Braden Fisk, who statistically was better than him last year, who's a stud. Keon Coleman, who I don't know, is a starting wide receiver for the Bills that most consider one of, if not the best team in the league. Renardo Green, who's a starting corner for the San Francisco 49ers. Like, his team was loaded. And then last year, what if last year was an outlier at 2-10? He's a big transfer portal guy. It didn't work. Because I watched his team. I went, they're fast, they're physical, they're explosive. And Mike Norvell's proven a couple years ago, beat Brian Kelly, beat Dabo Sweeney, beat Mike Elko, who's now the coach at Texas A&M, went 13-0, ran the table, won the ACC. And if it wasn't for his quarterback basically getting his leg amputated, I think Jordan Travis legitimately retired with the New York Jets because his leg's all screwed up, that they would have made the playoffs. And who knows? That team was built like they could have won the national championship if Jordan Travis was playing. This guy's not some random scrub. Honestly, like, part of the reason I have so much respect for DeBoer is I saw what he did at Washington. In his second year there, they went to the Natty. That could have been easily Mike Norvell if it wasn't for this weird circumstance with his quarterback. So I think everyone was writing off Mike Norvell, and maybe I bought into it too. Like, he just had a weird year in the transfer portal. He's a transfer portal guy. And sometimes teams aren't going to mesh, and sometimes they are. So that was a really, really impressive win. But what I think Mike Norvell, like, yeah, he kind of feels like he fits in the South. Kalen DeBoer doesn't really. Just like Lincoln Riley. Like, does he feel like L.A.? No, he doesn't to me. Now, maybe his team's good enough, and maybe with NIL they can recruit well enough. But I'm a huge believer that regions in college football matter. Andy Reid could coach the Patriots, could coach the Rams, could coach the Chiefs. The NFL does not matter. In college, it does. It's why, listen, there's no disputing what Brian Kelly did at Notre Dame was impressive. If you look at Brian Kelly's resume, it is impressive. He's won everywhere he went. Grand Valley State, was it my first year or second year? I think it might have been my second year as a GA at Fresno State. We went to the University of Cincinnati, Nippert Stadium. Pretty sure Jason Kelsey might have been like a true freshman on that team. They had Tony Pike, I think their quarterback was. Gilliard, this wide receiver that was drafted to the Rams. That team went undefeated. They went to a BCS bowl game. Now, he left for Notre Dame, if you remember, and they ended up getting killed. I think Tim Tebow's team played him, and they destroyed him, but Brian Kelly had left. I remember thinking, like, this team's good. I mean, this guy knows what he's doing. Now, when he went to the South and he faked the accent, you're like, I don't know if this is going to work. He's a little douchey, but there's no disputing. Like, he kind of knows what he's doing. And offensively is not his problem. They always had sweet offensive linemen. They always had good running backs. He's clearly good at quarterbacks at LSU. Wide receivers are never going to be a problem at LSU. The question is going to be a defense. Well, the thing at these schools, they will give you unlimited cash to buy coaches. And LSU, like, he went and got, what's the guy's name? Blake Baker, who's wearing the LSU baseball hat. Last year, they clearly had improved from Jaden Daniels' season. This year, they looked real. I mean, defensive line-wise, they were flying around up front. They were working Clemson. The defensive backs were making play after play. And this is the thing with doing these preseason rankings. It's like, yeah, you could have convinced me LSU's an 8-4 team, or you could convince me they're 11-1. And it's like, oh, this guy number 4, he's this transfer portal guy from Virginia Tech, and he looks like Patrick Peterson out there. And that's why it's so hard. I heard someone say this today, I forget where, but like a couple years ago, pre-transfer portal, if you went 2-10 at Florida State, what Mike Norvell just did, it would have taken you years to turn that thing around to get to like compete for 9-10 wins. Years. Now it's like you can do it in 6 months. If you told me that Florida State's 10-2 or 11-1 and wins the ACC, wouldn't be shocking at all. Wouldn't be shocking at all. So the game has really, really changed, and it's about getting the right couple players. And at schools like LSU, Clemson, definitely Ohio State, Florida State, Texas, we're talking like 3 or 4 guys swing the whole thing. Last year, what happened to Ohio State? They got Caleb Downs, who's one of the best players, not the best player in the country. They got Will Howard, who down the stretch was incredible. So if you hit on the right 2 or 3 players, I mean, if Miami last year hadn't signed Cam Ward and signed like an average quarterback, they're going like 5-7 or 6-6. But they had the number 1 pick in the draft, one of the worst defenses in the country, and they went 9-3. So the transfer portal is this, unless you're living in it like a college football GM, we're all just taking educated guesses. We don't really know. We think we kind of know. We have some idea. But there are huge swings with individuals, and like, let's face it. I was on the couch, and Maria looks at me last night watching LSU-Clemson, and she goes, who would you draft? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, who would you draft? I don't know. I don't even know half these kids are. She's like, you should do a segment on that. And I was like, oh, a segment on who I would draft? She's like, yeah, call it like the Couch Scout. I'm like, honestly, honey, that's not a bad idea. And I was thinking, like, I'm sitting there watching these two quarterbacks, Garrett Nussmeier, who, like I said, I've known Doug Nussmeier for 15 years. I saw him at the combine 2 years ago, walking down the hall. I love that guy. I absolutely, I love Doug. He's the man. He's always been a huge supporter of me. Loves the podcast. Always gets a huge smile when he sees me. And he was walking with Brent Selleck. This is when he was the quarterback coach for the Eagles the year they. I mean, he's had an awesome little run here. Won the Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts as the quarterback coach. Then goes with Kellen to New Orleans. That's his guy. And then his son. Like that was. And I guess the couch scout in me goes, listen, Garrett Nussmeier's good. And obviously he showed flashes last year, had some great moments and had some down moments. That performance on the road, some of these quarterbacks are playing nobodies and average teams, non like power four teams. I don't even know what to make of it. Like that was a real opponent on the road. You probably can't hear yourself think. This guy, Garrett, got crushed time and time again, and he kept getting up. It's like this guy's tough SOB. He's making great throws, but he's kind of a throwback quarterback. He's not Mr. Athletic. To me, he kind of has like, and I'm talking the good versions of these guys, what Jimmy Garoppolo was early on in his San Francisco career. I would call him mobile, but he definitely could move a little bit. And like Kirk Cousins, he's more mobile than Kirk Cousins, but he's that style of player. But he's really good in the pocket. He's really tough. He will sit in there and make throws. The guys really like him. I mean, that's an NFL quarterback. Now, how high his ceiling is, like I'm not saying Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow, but he's a really good player, and that was a really impressive game. It's why you can't box score scout, because didn't throw 7 touchdowns, but every single big play they needed, he was on the money. Every time he got knocked down, he'd fucking shake it off and jump right back up. Honestly, I was impressed with Cade Klubnik as well. And to me, like this is going to sound a little, I think he's kind of got some Brock Purdy vibes. Athletic, I wouldn't call him a runner. He's not Lamar or Kyler, but he definitely can move. Definitely a good playmaker. Also pretty tough. And his offensive line, I thought, kind of underachieved last night, getting rocked by LSU. I mean, I thought LSU and Florida State dominated the line of scrimmage on defense. I would say the same thing for Miami tonight. They were dominating the line of scrimmage. And you can tell, you're like, God, that guy looks like an NFL defensive end. God, that guy looks like an NFL defensive end. And that really is the difference. If you get good quarterback play and then good defensive line play, you're going to have a chance to win the national championship. So I was really impressed. To me, Nussmeier kind of gives off Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo vibes. I would say Cade gives maybe a little more athletic Purdy, but like just a good player. And I have no problem. Like I said, the neutral site games need to go away. Because I wish we could get to the point where we don't even play these meaningless games. I know Coward's high on USC because they beat Missouri State, Western, Eastern. Like that game's not real to me. Like it's just my Guy Haberman was calling it, so I was watching it. But it was like this is a massacre. What do I even take away? Then you watch Texas and Ohio State, or Clemson and LSU, or Notre Dame and Miami. It's like there are NFL players all over this field. Like this is real football. This is what we want to watch. It's just fantastic TV. And the one thing I want to end on, big win awesome for Mike Norvell. Listen, you got to give Brian Kelly his flowers. Got to give Mario his flowers. Some of these coaches that were like, some people were like, damn. This notion, too, that guys are on the hot seat. Kalen DeBoer's not getting fired. I've seen different numbers, but the buyout this year is between $60 and $70 million. He could go 4-8. They do not have the money to give Kalen DeBoer $65 million to go away, to pay a roster $20 to $30 million to field a high-end team. Well, if they're firing Kalen DeBoer, who do you think they're going to hire? Me or you for $100,000? No, they're going to want some sweet coach, $10 million coach. That means you got to give him $90 million. You got to pay his coordinators multi-millions. Alabama is not Notre Dame. It's not USC. It's Texas. Their athletic director a year ago was on Twitter begging for money. The day and age of paying like Jimbo Fisher, those days are done. And Texas A&M has way more money. They could pull it off. Alabama cannot. There is no paying. When I see these people, like reputable college football media being like, I wonder, could they fire him for John Gruden? Kalen DeBoer is not getting bought out. Alabama cannot afford to do that. It is not happening. Now, it could get really ugly, and I get why they'd be really mad because you're coming from Nick Saban. If you're dating a supermodel in her prime, and then all of a sudden it's like you're dating some ugly chick, it's going to suck. And if you're starting losing games and you're used to kicking everyone's ass, it's not going to be fun. But there's no these 50, 60, $70 billion buyouts when you're paying the players now. Those days are done. Unless you have some T. Boone Pickens or Phil Knight that just give you, here's $100 million check to buy a guy out, to buy the new guy, and pay the player. I don't know who's doing that. I don't think it's going to happen. I really don't. So, yeah. What was I? Oh, the neutral site. I just think we got to get rid of these neutral site games. I truly don't know. I've been trying to wrap my head. Who benefits? Arthur Blank. I mean, he hosts like 4 of these things. Or Jerry Jones. I got no problem in the conference championship. Put in Vegas, put in Indy. I get it. The Orange Bowl. I understand it. I have no problem with that. But the first game of the season, like Nebraska and Cincinnati, or South Carolina. I think how awesome that would have been if you were South Carolina hosting that game with Virginia Tech, or vice versa. Virginia Tech hosting your coach's son. How sweet that would have been. What a cool moment for the Beamer family. But instead, we're playing this thing at Mercedes-Benz. It's bullshit. It sucks. For as great as like Clemson was or Ohio State was, the pageantry, the intensity, just how much it means. That's what college football is the environment. It's what I didn't go to any of these schools, yet it draws me to watch these games. We got to get rid of it. That being said, it's probably not going away anytime soon. So hopefully everyone enjoyed the weekend, and it's not quite done because we got Bill Belichick tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So buckle up, enjoy your holiday Monday off, and I will talk to you soon.